To show you how I fixed a major mistake in this painting. Let's get started. I'm using my size 10 brush and I'm using permanent yellow and Hansa yellow light, two different yellows, just to create a really light, bright yellow colour on the horizon, which you can see in the photograph, and it's in contrast to that really dark, stormy sky. And I'm using a bit of quinacridone rust. You could use burnt sienna. I'm just painting that just below the yellow, a little bit of wet on wet and wet on dry. I've dried my painting and I'm putting some tape over the yellow, and also to create a nice straight edge. I'm wetting my sky with a large soft brush, really letting it soak into this lovely gorgeous rough paper. I've mixed up some ultramarine and some quinacridone magenta. I'm using my size 10 brush and I'm painting wet into wet. If you look in the photograph, the darkest bit of the sky is right on the horizon. There is a storm coming here. So I thought I'd put a lovely purpley colour. Now this is actually Prussian blue with a bit of magenta, because I really wanted to get some drama in this sky. So this is kind of damp into wet, still using my size 10 brush, and I did a little bit of tilting there, as you saw, to get the paint moving. This is Payne's grey with some quinacridone magenta. It's a little bit more of a greyish colour. I've left a gap between the dark sky at the bottom of the horizon there, and so I'm painting this in the middle sky. And what I'm doing here, because you can see it's dry quite quickly even though I wet the paper, so I've used my spritzer bottle to re-wet the paper, and I'm painting on a little bit more darker, stronger quinacridone magenta with the Payne's grey. I'm now diluting, and I've mixed up a little bit of ultramarine and a bit of quinacridone rust, but you could use the burnt sienna. It's very dilute. At the top of the sky it's quite light, so I'm just painting in these sort of dark, softer shadows on the clouds here. The drama is at the horizon, and in the centre, as you saw there, the light in the sky is really quite dramatic. I'm really pleased with that. It doesn't happen to me very often, but all of my sky bled down into the yellow area as I pulled off the frog tape. It was my first time using it on this paper. That might be the reason why it may not like it. So to fix this mistake, and it's got Prussian blue in here as well. I wish I hadn't used the Prussian blue because that's going to stain a little bit, so I've got to really work quickly here. So I'm getting plenty of just clean water from my pot using my size 10 brush. My sky is still wet because I've got no time to blow dry this because it'll be harder to get the paint off. So I'm very gently now just lifting off the paint. I don't want to press too hard because it pushes the paint into the watercolour paper. So gently take off that excess and then repeat. Get more clean water on there. So don't get worried at this stage, because you can still work at this. So just keep getting clean water, because you've got this really good paper and suddenly there's a little bit of a disaster. So we've got to get this off as best we can. I'm finding on this left hand side it was easier because that's where the Prussian blue, I didn't put the Prussian blue on the left hand side of the sky, it was on the right hand side. So as you can see on the right hand side, the yellow area is a lot more stained. So here on the left hand side it's coming off really easy, so that's good to know. So I'm still trying to get off this Prussian blue as best I can, but it has really stained. But don't worry, because there's other things you can do. It's just showing you all the paints come off. You can use something called a magic watercolor sponge. I don't use them very often because I find just getting it off with a brush is fine, but if you do find you've stained your paper, these are quite good. Another disaster there. So I've just cut a small piece because they're quite generous with the sizes there, and I'm just working into it. And I have to say, Fabriano Rough does not like to be scrubbed. Some papers don't necessarily do what it's doing here. It's sort of taking off the top surface of the paper. You can see there's lots of bits of paper coming off. I'm not going to let this worry me, because this is more important, is to try and get some of this blue off here on the right hand side. It's not perfect, but it is so much better than what it was when all that paint had run down, and it gives you the opportunity to carry on with your painting. The painting has dried and I'm adding some more yellow wet on dry on the horizon area to disguise the underpainting. And I'm going to add some of the quinacridone rust. Again, you could use burnt sienna. And if you just look in the sky on the right hand side, I think I got a little bit of a drip in the sky, so a little bit of a circle there. I'm going to show you how I deal with that later. So I'm just adding a little bit of burnt sienna there, just a little bit to make a green. I'm using some Prussian blue and some yellow here for some brighter, greener grasses in the foreground. I'm really trying to make this scene simple, and if you notice, I'm not painting the trees. I decided to keep it extra simple, really, especially if you're a beginner, you're just starting out and you can just concentrate on the washes. So this is actually a little bit of the Payne's grey with the green now, and actually you can see I'm just getting everything in my palette. I'm painting wet into wet, so as you can see it's very light on the horizon and then quite dark green on the foreground there, and I'm just mixing in here a little bit of the burnt sienna and Payne's grey, but I felt it was a bit dark, and again I'm spraying off. I love actually spritzing off because it gives you an opportunity to soften things as well. So that little mark in the sky, I'm using my spritzer bottle. You notice I'm getting right up close to it and I'm spritzing away, and it's just to sort of reawaken the paint because watercolour isn't permanent, and it sort of wets the surrounding area softly. And now I'm going in with creamy sort of violet, that's the ultramarine and the pink, using my size 10 brush and just sort of blending it into that wet area to try and disguise that little white circle. And I've done quite a good job, I might say so myself, but that's the way to do that sometimes, to soften. I'm using something called Brusho. I will put a link in the description about Brusho, but it's actually a really nice medium where you get some great texture, and I'm sprinkling just a small amount moss green onto the wet surface. I've also used watercolour pencils and an emery board, especially if you don't have Brusho, it's quite a good substitute, and I have used sea salt. This is all to create all those yummy textures, and of course my twig has come out to play, but you could use the plastic card as well. I'm actually using a little bit more black Brusho. It is actually quite a strong colour, and as you notice, this kind of takes over. It's amazing. Look at that black Brusho moving, especially after I gave it a little spritz with the spritzer bottle as well. Wow, look at that. The painting has dried and it's completely changed. All that lovely texture with the salt and the Brusho. It looks really amazing. I'm so pleased with that sort of bright light in the sky as well with that dark cloud. I'm just painting in now some little birds with my size 2 brush, using a little bit of Payne's grey, keeping them nice and simple and different angles as well so they look like they're in flight, and put some really small birds on the horizon, all wet on dry. I thought it'd be quite nice as well just to put some trees in the distance to give the painting a little bit of interest to finish off. So I'm using a little bit of Payne's grey and yellow, working wet on dry with my size 4 brush. And I thought I'd put some trees on the other side. This is quite a rough paper, so you can see the texture here using this green paint. And I'm really just trying to get a little bit of texture and dark on the horizon to really bring that yellow light out as well. I thought it'd be quite nice as well. I'm just lifting out some of that colour to look like they're branches and light tree trunks there with the plastic card. I'm just using my paper towel now to brush off all the salt. When you do this, do make sure your painting is dry. And as you know, I love to spatter at the end of my painting. I'm actually spattering some white gouache. I'm also going to add a little bit of yellow to that, so you've got like little yellow wildflowers as well. And here is the finished painting. I really hope you enjoyed the step-by-step landscape tutorial, but also how to correct the mistakes. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments section. If you'd like to get access to my weekly exclusive tutorials, why not think about joining my Patreon membership? Details about the membership can be found in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. Happy painting. Bye for now.